Affordable and desirable vehicles are difficult to come by these days. Even for the subcompact crossover market, vehicles are now starting to go above the $30,000 mark, which these were supposed to be attainable daily drivers for everybody if they were on a stricter budget, they wanted practicality, they wanted efficiency, they also wanted some versatility. Now in the 2020s, it's getting very difficult to find a vehicle that has all the features, all the amenities you desire in a package that comes in below $30,000. Well, Chevrolet has you covered with the 2025 Chevrolet Trax. Believe it or not, even for a top trim 2RS or active, it doesn't exceed the price point of $30,000. Pretty phenomenal. But what about the LT? This is a mid-tier trim that a lot of people say is the pick in the lineup, and we're going to find out if it truly is. We're going to check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a quick test drive, and see why, if you are looking at buying a subcompact crossover right now, you want a vehicle that is efficient, you also want a vehicle that has some technology features, then maybe taking a look at the Chevrolet Trax might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Copeland Chevrolet here in Hudson, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the Chevrolet Trax. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Chevrolet inventory. So as always, let's begin with pricing. For 2025 with the LT, you're looking at a starting cost of just over $23,500. That's right, $23,500 in 2025, and this isn't even the base trim for this model. That's actually pretty impressive. Now, I know what you're thinking though. For a vehicle in the subcompact crossover market, for a price point under $25,000, what am I expecting to receive here? Am I going to get a vehicle that feels cheap, tacky, and unrefined? Am I going to get a vehicle that lacks a lot of interior comforts and features? Well, I think you might be surprised today. And let's start off with the exterior. So up front, you are going to receive full LED headlights and LED signature daytime running lights. That right there kind of sets a tone for the Trax for 2025, because even though right now in the 2020s, LED lighting isn't rare or uncommon in the subcompact market, it's still great to see for a vehicle under 25 grand. Now with the LT, you are going to notice that there's a lot more chrome accents compared to other trims in the lineup. So you have that chrome strip that runs the length of the front fascia into the front grille and outlining the daytime running lights. Now also, you're going to have on the lower portion of the front bumper some cladding there and some brushed aluminum accents, giving you that two-tone look for that portion of the front fascia, which looks pretty cool. As you make your way along the side profile, that cladding continues for the wheel wells, and then that also makes its way for the rear fascia as well. And speaking of the side profile, by going with the LT, you are going to receive 17-inch aluminum wheels, which for a vehicle in this particular market, and also with this being more of an entry model for the Chevrolet brand, those 17s are going to help out with the ride quality and making this vehicle feel somewhat smooth on the roadways. Now again, temper your expectations, because for a crossover at around $25,000, it is not going to feel luxurious. However, if you were to go with the active or 2RS, you get 18s or 19s. And those larger tires are going to play around with the road noise and also that ride quality. So the 17s should be more than sufficient for a subcompact crossover. Also, for our model, we do have color matched side mirror caps, giving you more of an upscale appearance here. Some vehicles don't offer that at around $24,000. Now, no surprise though, we do not have turn signal indicators. However, we do have blind spot detection for added safety. Then as you make your way around to the back, you are going to notice that this vehicle does demonstrate that it is somewhat of a lifted hatchback or possibly a lifted station wagon when you take a look at its dimensions, because it is rather long for a vehicle in this market. You're going to notice the aggressive rear spoiler, but then also the way the taillights are shaped and designed, it does look somewhat car-like. Now for the lower portion of the rear bumper, you're going to notice that cladding once again and the brushed aluminum accents, which looks really nice for a vehicle in this market. Now you guys know I do like having the exhaust outlets be visible. However, they are tucked beneath the bumper for that cleaner appearance. And while we're taking a look at the rear fascia, might as well go over the cargo area for the LT. No surprises here, you are not going to receive a power liftgate. But inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 25.5 cubic feet of room, and that would outclass a lot of subcompacts in this market, such as the Subaru Crosstrek, Honda HR-V, and Mazda CX-30. So if you are going on a road trip with the family or significant other, you can easily store probably 7 or 8 bags of luggage back here with no issues. You're also going to find a little storage compartment on the left side of this cargo area for some smaller items, maybe a couple water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right around 54 cubic feet of room, falling right in line with most vehicles in this market. But it does get better, because beneath the floor mat, you are going to find a spare tire. Now, it's not a full-size spare, but still, if you do encounter a flat on those road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. Before taking a look at the interior for the LT, believe it or not, you are going to have keyless entry available for this trim, but better yet, remote start. That is right. That is just one of the features that's available for this model that provides a lot of value for a vehicle under $30,000. Hopping inside the LT we have today, you've probably already noticed that we do have an optional package, as we talked about with the exterior having keyless entry and then also the color match side mirror caps. This is all part of a $600 LT convenience package, giving you heated, manually adjustable cloth seats for both the driver and passenger, and also a heated steering wheel. This right here brings a lot of value to the table for this model, and for only $600, I think it's totally worth it, because especially if you live up here in New England and you're dealing with cold weather, having the heated front seats does go a long way. In regards to the comfort factor for them, they actually provide a decent amount of support. The backs of these seats are a bit firm, which is to be expected with this being cloth upholstery. I do think going a little higher up in the trim levels for the 2RS or the Active would be a better choice if you want to get the EvoTex upholstery, which gives you a bit more support and comfort. Now, the EvoTex upholstery does make its appearance, though, for these cloth seats on the outboard side of them, and it gives you more of an upscale appearance to these seats. So I think you guys are definitely going to like that for sure. But really, though, for this vehicle, it's all about the technology, and to have this mostly coming standard is pretty impressive, especially right now in the 2020s, and when you consider what other vehicles the Trax goes up against. So in front of you, you are going to have a full digital gauge cluster, and by using the dial on the right side of the steering wheel, you can scroll through some information here. You can also customize this layout to your liking with 3 different gauge layouts. Now, this isn't going to be super in-depth or intuitive. That's to be expected for a vehicle coming in under $25,000. So if you're someone looking for more technology, you want something a bit more in depth here, you might want to go with the Chevrolet Equinox, because you are going to notice that with that digital gauge cluster, it's going to be very competitive in the compact segments. Whereas for a vehicle in this particular market, to have a full digital gauge cluster is almost unheard of. So even though it's not going to rival any luxury brands, this is still a bit more cutting edge compared to some rivals out there. Then taking a look at the infotainment system, you are going to receive an 11-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. Now, from this screen, it's actually very easy to use. You're going to have your home screen with all your icons here for the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but then also your climate control settings, vehicle settings, and Wi-Fi hotspot. Now, in regards to the climate control, you don't have to access that on the screen. You're still going to have physical buttons and dials beneath the head unit for your front and rear defrosters, fan speed, fan direction, then of course the single zone climate control, and also your 3-level heated seats, giving you more of an analog and tactile experience. Now, for the screen itself, though, if you're someone who doesn't like a lot of technology or you're new to infotainment systems, this is going to be very easy to get acclimated with. So on the left side of the screen will be quick access icons to get your different menus efficiently, such as your radio, your Bluetooth. Also, you can turn on or off your traction control. It's also from here where you can access your maintenance, your gauges, and your trip computer. So if you don't want to look at the digital gauge cluster, you can have that displayed on the infotainment system. That's pretty cool. Honestly, this is not going to be super in-depth. It's not going to be laid out like you're going to find in a Chevrolet Equinox or even in other vehicles in this market. But again, though, for a vehicle under $30,000, this is more than adequate for sure. Also, one thing that does stand out to me is the fact when you do place this vehicle in reverse, you are going to have a rear backup camera with trajectory, an active trajectory at that. Some vehicles don't offer that at around $25,000. So you are going to have that confidence when you are backing out of tight spots or you're parking on a city street. Then as you make your way towards the center console, you are going to find a USB-C and USB-A outlet, also a 12-volt outlet as well. And there is a compartment for some smaller items. Now, this compartment is going to be a wireless phone charging pad if you go with an optional package. Again, we'll talk about that in a minute. For the center console itself, you're going to have your gear selector here, also your lane assist button and auto start stop. This is all flanked by gloss black trim. I know what you're thinking, that will be difficult to clean and maintain, but this is very common in this segment. Next to that will be another compartment for maybe a wallet or two or loose change, and then for your standard storage compartment, there is plenty of room for smaller items. I do think you can throw in a couple small water bottles if you are going on an outdoor adventure. Now, getting into the optional packages that are available for the LT, one we've already talked about with the LT convenience package, but there's also the driver confidence package at $800, giving you rear park assist, rear cross traffic alert, lane change alert, and side blind zone alert, along with adaptive cruise control. Then you also have the sunroof package at $900 for the power sunroof, and then also your wireless phone charging pad. Then for passengers in the back, they're going to receive right around 38 inches of legroom, which, to put that into perspective, would be on par with some compact crossovers. Now, again, you're missing out on a few things here with the Trax, where you don't have the ground clearance, you don't have the size, and also you don't have that all-wheel drive system, so you are going to be missing out if you're going to think about cross-shopping this with, say, a Honda CR-V or Toyota RAV4. But if you are cross-shopping this with other subcompacts, you will be genuinely impressed with the amount of interior space that you have here to work with. Now, for a vehicle of this size and with that lower roof line, obviously taller passengers might be hitting their head on the headliner, but for legroom and shoulder room, it's actually more than sufficient for a crossover in this market. This is adjusted most of the way back and also somewhat on a recline, and I have plenty of legroom here, so I think you can have taller passengers or even have your children sit in the back and everyone should be comfortable. Better yet, because you don't have a center hump here for the second row, I think you can squeeze in a third person in the center, and most subcompact crossovers cannot provide that. So there is some versatility here in regards to the interior space for the 2025 Trax. Also back here, you do have a USB-A and USB-C input, but no surprises here, no center air vents. Now, it is a bit of a sacrifice by going with the Trax, but you don't get a center armrest with two cup holders, but you do have cup holders on the door panels. And lastly, with the Chevrolet Trax LT, you are going to receive a 1.2-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, producing 137 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with a 6-speed automatic transmission, which is huge because for a lot of vehicles in this market, they do utilize CVTs. So even though this crossover is not going to be very quick with a 0 to 60 time of around 8.8 seconds, one, it feels quicker because of that 6-speed automatic transmission, and two, it's not going to be the slowest in its segment, which is most important for a vehicle with a Turbo 3. Now, there are a few things, though, that I do want to talk about. One being the fact that with this model, you don't get all-wheel drive. So that is one huge drawback here if you do live in colder regions of the U.S. But a lot of people will say, just put on those winter tires. Some of you might listen, but I know a lot of you won't. So you might want to go with a Trailblazer at the very least with that all-wheel drive system. Now, with the LT, with those 17-inch wheels, what you are going to notice here is that because the suspension is tuned rather softly, you go over the bumps and imperfections quite well. But for a vehicle coming in at just over $23,000, road noise is still going to be quite audible here. So you are going to hear the road noise, you're going to hear the wind noise, and interior insulation is not going to mimic a luxury crossover, so keep all of that in mind. But I do think a lot of you are going to like that for a vehicle that comes in under $25,000, it doesn't really feel like an Econobox or a traditional Econobox. So when you're hopping into a vehicle like this, you have certain expectations. Most of them are more on the limited side, where it's like, all right, I'm not going to get a vehicle that feels refined, I'm not going to get a vehicle that feels luxurious, but I am going to get an affordable and efficient daily driver, which you do have. But I think that what Chevrolet has done to this platform and chassis for this generation is give you just a bit more here. So with the full digital gauge cluster, infotainment system, even these cloth seats, you have a driving environment that's going to give you a pleasurable driving experience. Now, obviously for a vehicle in this market, when you are cruising on the highway at around 65 miles an hour, it doesn't feel too planted on the roadways. Let's be honest here. It's still a subcompact crossover, no sports tuned suspension. Although one thing I do notice here with this Turbo 3, I have experienced it a few times, is that when you are on the highway, when you want to pass slower drivers, you can do so very easily and safely, and that is huge for a vehicle with such a low power band here. 137 horsepower, not very quick. But because you don't have all-wheel drive, this vehicle isn't going to feel all that heavy. So because of that, it's going to be quicker than if it had that all-wheel drive system. Where the Chevrolet Trax does differ from its closest rivals is the fact that it does have some great handling characteristics and feels pretty agile. Comparing it to a Honda HR-V, Toyota Corolla Cross, you might have a bit more fun here. Now, the steering is not going to be too weighted here. It's still somewhat light, matching this vehicle's on-road demeanor and attributes. But it doesn't feel completely disconnected from the road. And it's also a crossover that you'll be pleasantly surprised by. Now, I will say, though, that despite all my excitement for what this vehicle has to offer under $25,000, if we're solely looking at this as a fun daily driver or what it offers in regards to the driving dynamics, I don't think this is the best vehicle in its segment in that regard. I would still lean towards a Subaru Crosstrek because the 8.7 inches of ground clearance, super symmetrical all-wheel drive, and also the 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine. However, if you live in the city and the suburbs and you don't care about performance, you don't take on winter road conditions, this actually might be a great choice for you, especially if this is your first ever vehicle you've purchased. Because unlike a lot of crossovers that came before the Trax, this is not a stereotypical econobox or subcompact crossover coming in at just over $20,000. It doesn't feel like a cheap vehicle. It doesn't feel like a disposable crossover either. And because of that, when you hop into the Trax for the first time, I do think you'll be genuinely impressed here. You're going to like that you're going to have the technology at your fingertips. You're going to like the fact that this vehicle has a youthful exterior and interior, and better yet, you're going to have the practicality that you're going to need if you do take frequent road trips or you have people in the back at all times. While I do think there are a lot of points of criticism for the Chevrolet Trax, most notably with the driving dynamics, or rather the versatility. The lack of versatility might turn you off compared to a Subaru Crosstrek, possibly a Honda HR-V. What's going to sell you on this model, though, is the affordability, the efficiency, the practicality. You know, Chevrolet really focused on the intangibles and they checked off all those boxes. And in the 2020s, there's not too many vehicles over $20,000, under $30,000 that gives you this amount of features and amenities. And because of that, that's why the Chevrolet Trax has become the best seller in this market. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Chevrolet Trax LT. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.